Hi guys, welcome to the Healthcare channel. Today's video we'll talk about essential tips on taking too much of sugar and minimization of diabetes for you to stay healthy. There is a lot of confusion about how much sugar is good for your health. Some people think it is okay to consume 1 or 2 teaspoons of sugar per day, while others consume 2 or 3 times that amount. The truth is, the body cannot process the excess sugar, and can, in fact, cause health problems if too much of it is consumed. The guidelines for acceptable daily amounts are not set in stone. However, people who suffer from diabetes and other conditions that affect blood sugar levels should probably consume no more than 55 grams of sugar in their diet per day. Of course, how much sugar is good for your health really depends on your age, as there is a link between increasing blood sugar levels and age. The more sugar you consume, the more the insulin in your bloodstream needs to be active. If insulin levels are low, the pancreas does not release as much insulin into the bloodstream, causing blood sugar levels to be higher than they should be. The second factor that affects how much sugar is good for your health is how many calories you eat. If you have diabetes or have made any other type of lifestyle change in order to treat your condition, then your doctor may advise you to increase your amount of daily exercise and eat less food. Sugar causes the body to store it as fat rather than burn it for energy. For this reason, some physicians recommend that patients with diabetes consume no more than 25 grams of sugar per day. Those who are overweight or have extra pounds to lose should consume no more than 45 grams of sugar. Unfortunately, many people do not believe that reducing sugar in their diet is beneficial. They think that consuming a bit of sugar is just fine and that the amount is completely irrelevant. If you are currently struggling with diabetes or have a family history of the disease, then you are already aware of how to avoid consuming too much sugar. However, many people do not know how to control their sugar intake, even when they have tried to cut back, and end up consuming far more than they need. People who suffer from diabetes should aim to consume no more than 55 grams of sugar per day. It is best to avoid the sweet stuff completely when suffering from high blood sugar levels, or if you are overweight, since the increased weight can make the sugar more difficult to process. Even the sweetest of foods can still be high in sugar. Chocolate, fruit, and other sugary treats contain large amounts of fructose, which is far too much for the body to digest. Sugar can be stored in the body, rather than released as energy, especially if it is frequently consumed in combination with other carbohydrate sources. This is why eating too much sugar is so dangerous, because it can prevent the body from using the insulin it needs to keep blood sugar levels steady. To really learn how to avoid consuming too much sugar, you will need to take a long hard look at your diet. Just eliminating certain foods can make a huge difference. When you are striving to manage your diabetes and stay healthy, you will need to be smart about how you do it. Having a sensible diet, and sticking to it, will go a long way toward keeping you well. It is obvious that sugar is a very important thing to have. It plays a very important role in our body functions. There are different types of sugar, which we can get from different sources. So, we need to learn the basics of sugar and how much is enough for our body. Some of the vital and most important roles of sugar in our body are that it plays a very important role in storing fat. By making use of sugar in a proper way, we can easily get rid of the extra fat from our body. But if the consumption of sugar exceeds the daily requirement, then there may be some complications like diabetes. The glycemic index or glycemic load plays an important role in sugar and its essential nutrients. For example, wheat is loaded with gluten, and this glycemic index rating is highly recommended by people who follow a low-carbohydrate diet. The person following this diet has to avoid wheat, rye, and barley. The glycemic index is not so well known by people who are used to sweet things. But it should be kept in mind that the glycemic index does not tell about the same things as the glycemic load. It tells the amount of glucose that is stored in the body. So, the glycemic index is also very important for the same reason. Hence, when people talk about glycemic index, they should also mention the glycemic load. Glucose is very important, but there are other elements that are important too. How much is the right amount of sugar? The quantity of sugar is determined according to the glycemic index. In the West, it is well known that how much is the right amount of sugar is dependent on the lifestyle of a person. But in developing countries it is different, and so the quantity of sugar should be more. If we are obese, then sugar consumption is increased because it helps to burn up the excess fat and avoid diabetes. That is why in such countries the amount of sugar consumed is higher. There are also a lot of diabetic patients who are on a low-carbohydrate diet. The intake of sugar in such patients is less because these types of diabetic patients have to live with high blood pressure. They don't have to worry about being on a restricted diet and increasing their glucose levels. The amount of sugar in diabetics is not much when compared to a person who is not diabetic. It should be mentioned that sugar is a nutrient and should be controlled on a daily basis to prevent diabetes. Diabetics have a low amount of glucose, so the chances of the body getting affected are lesser. If the diabetic patient doesn't consume sugar, then the blood sugar is kept low and that reduces the essential protein in the body. If this happens, then there will be a lot of complications like anemia, weakness, and fatigue. If we don't get the sugar in the right amounts, then diabetes may become a big problem in diabetic patients. So, the amount of sugar needed is not very important as long as it is not too much. It is a well-known fact that in the US alone more than 19 million people are affected by diabetes and about 3 million more are at high risk of becoming diabetic. Diabetes is a serious condition, but it can be controlled. The term diabetes refers to two different types of diabetes, gestational and non-gestational. Gestational diabetes occurs before, during, and after pregnancy, while non-gestational diabetes develops after a child has been born. High blood sugar levels lead to increased energy loss, fatigue, blurred vision, headaches, feeling thirsty, pale skin, and weight loss in infants. Even small changes in the blood sugar levels can lead to such symptoms as feeling weak, dizziness, vomiting, frequent urination, loss of appetite, tiredness, confusion, irritability, difficulty concentrating, pain in the chest, persistent diarrhea, and even death. Although these symptoms may appear minor, they can result in long-term complications that can cause significant pain and disability. How to control the amount of sugar intake to avoid the risk of diabetes? First, you should be aware that all sugar contains calories, so eating too much sugar will lead to weight gain. Secondly, it is essential to eat regularly so that your blood sugar levels are measured on a daily basis. You should try to follow a healthy diet and exercise daily if you want to control the amount of sugar intake to avoid the risk of diabetes. If you have diabetes, you should consider how to control the amount of sugar intake to avoid the risk of diabetes. Nowadays, eating habits have changed and people tend to make the most of the food in order to get more sugar intake. They tend to eat junk food or sugary candies and drinks, which is not good for their health. Have you ever noticed that not all foods contain the same amounts of sugar? Some food contains more sugar than others. Therefore, you should pay attention to the amount of sugar you consume daily. The first step in the battle against diabetes is to find the food that has the least amount of sugar and learn how to avoid the ones that have more sugar. Your daily meal should be balanced. No need to increase the amount of sugar intake, just stick to a balanced diet. It is also very important to talk to your doctor if you want to find out how to control the amount of sugar intake to avoid the risk of diabetes. A medical professional can advise you on a healthy way to eat. In addition, they can provide you with the most effective method to control sugar intake to avoid the risk of diabetes. Some medications that are used to treat diabetes can lead to possible side effects and could affect the growth of your immune system. So, you should consult your doctor if you want to be free from diabetes. The bad cholesterol can also affect your blood sugar level. For example, those who have diabetes and high cholesterol are more likely to experience poor blood sugar control. How to control the amount of sugar intake to avoid the risk of diabetes? Regular physical activity, a healthy diet, and enough sleep are your tools to control the sugar intake to avoid the risk of diabetes. Many people who are overweight or diabetic face the situation of having to manage their blood sugar, in order to avoid having to eat foods that raise their blood sugar level. When trying to avoid getting too much sugar into the body, many people will find that they have to limit their intake of food, while consuming little in the way of healthy foods. Even though this is a difficult situation to be in, there are ways to keep yourself healthy, even if you eat lots of processed foods. One way to help avoid the dangers of sugar is to take less of it in the first place. Since so many Americans are eating a diet that is loaded with high amounts of sugar, it is necessary to think about reducing this. For some people, that means eating less of the regular menu that they enjoy. Instead, they should think about replacing it with foods that are low in sugar, as these are generally easier on the body. The other way to avoid the dangers of sugar is to make sure that your body gets enough vitamins and minerals from foods that are natural. Many people who are trying to avoid too much sugar find that they can get better results by going natural. For example, fruits such as apples and strawberries are full of nutrients, but they also have low levels of sugar. Vegetables, on the other hand, have plenty of sugar, but they are also rich in nutrients. The next step in how to avoid too much sugar and minimize the risk of diabetes is to eat smaller portions. By eating a larger portion, you can create a situation where you can get too much sugar in your system, which can then cause your blood sugar to spike up. Rather than eating all the food that you like, you should try to eat only 1 or 2 large meals per day. If you want to learn how to avoid too much sugar and minimize the risk of diabetes, you need to do some research about what is right for your body. This is important because not all foods are created equal. You should not try to eat too much of the foods that you dislike, but rather stick to those that are good for you. In addition to reducing the amount of sugar that you consume, another important way to keep your body healthy is to exercise. If you can exercise regularly, you can significantly reduce the risks of diabetes. Because diabetes has many causes, and you do not need to eat too much sugar to cause diabetes, you should also consider ways to maintain a healthy weight. Another way to avoid too much sugar and minimize the risk of diabetes is to help your body burn off fat more quickly. If you are overweight, you should try to get rid of some of the extra pounds that you have gained over the years. If you are not currently obese, you can still do this by increasing your activity level, in addition to practicing healthy eating habits. Finally, one of the most important ways to avoid too much sugar and minimize the risk of diabetes is to stay physically active. People who work out and have a healthy body are usually healthier than those who do not. Keep an eye on your health, and make sure that you avoid too much sugar in the process. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more recommendations on health, relationship, lifestyle, and other helpful information to form life easier.